I'm going to swap the next two questions around because this next one or the one after that is kind of linked. And this might actually be a gnarly one. I'm aware that we're an hour in, so I'm going to limit this to maybe an hour and 20 minutes. I don't know if you can see the clock, but if we can try and limit ourselves, we've got two more questions to, well, three if you include this one, which is has safeguarding gone too far? So
Hmm.
has safeguarding gone too far? What do we think?
Um, Probably. Um, it used to be my full-time job,
Hmm.
um, being in charge of safeguarding for an entire county. Uh, Not a county as in scouts, but as in, a social services department. Um, there is a big difference between what one set of people will think of as safeguarding and what another is. For me, having seen uh, the very worst, and I mean the very worst, I would say that a lot of the worries and concerns that come through within youth organisations, don't worry.
Can
Just
I
be
ask, sorry, Ian,
just be a normal human being.
can I just interject very quickly, Ian? That job, you would have seen some pretty awful things,
Mm.
right? Does that not make you want to make increase safeguarding? I mean, you say that you think it's gone too far. You
Um, I I want safeguarding where children are not going to be hit, yelled at, emotionally abused, or in any other way mistreated. Um, and most people, that's what happens. Kids are fine; they're going to be okay. Um, where it starts to get too far is when adults are terrified of being around children and doing anything with children because, oh my word, what if I do the wrong thing? What if I say the wrong thing? Um, yeah. Oh, if I happen to be caught in a room and there's only one child there and the other leaders are next door, right? And they panic. And that's an environment that I personally, and it is a personal thing, uh, think is very sad, and really we shouldn't really be going down that line so much. It's something that we've imported from the United States, where their litigation culture is so high, uh, particularly compared to here in the UK. Uh, but if you go into other parts of Europe, are starting to go the way that we've gone. But if you go to the likes of Australia and things are a lot more relaxed. You go into parts of Asia, uh, they still have safeguarding. Yeah, it's still just as verboten to hit kids or uh, put them at risk and things like that. But it's perfectly okay to be around children, and there isn't that automatic thought of, oh, well, if you're near a child, you've got to be a paedophile then, or there's something a bit dodgy, um, you know. But basically, the laws that we have in this country are based around the fact of what would a normal, reasonable person do. If a child is upset or injured, it's perfectly okay to go and put your arm around them, give them a hug, say, "Go on, you're going to be okay. It's all right." Obviously, it's best not to sit them on your lap. Maybe sit beside them and put your arm around them from the side, right? So you're just protecting yourself that way. So it's stopping. Most safeguarding really is safeguarding the adults. It's not
Yeah.
so much safeguarding the children. It's, what would a newspaper headline look like? Or what would somebody with a more, let's say, a slightly malicious streak in them, what might they say? Um, but unfortunately, I think it has gone a bit too far. It's led by social media and some of the tabloid type uh, ways of things going. I've seen real abuse. Real abuse is very different to what most people think of as, an inconsequential act. If you're doing a bit of first aid on somebody, yes, nowadays I go through the whole thing of asking permissions and things. I'm going to do this, and I give a commentary on what I'm doing if I have to do any first aid. Likewise, if I have somebody come up to help when I'm doing my circus or sideshow acts, is it okay? But I can just move you over here. And I grab them by the shoulders and move them into position. It's little things like that. That's fine. When it gets to the bit of, oh, don't bring a child onto the stage because, oh no, you're just running a risk. I think that's where it goes too far. Likewise, if we're going on a camp and things, yeah, we have to have an element of trust there. And I think that trust, and it's a two-way thing. It's the child to the adult to the child, and also the parents to the adults, and vice versa. So it's like a freeway bit. And that trust bit over the last 10, 15, 20 years has eroded and eroded, and it's not been good for society. I think the strong message, though, I don't want to say that safeguarding shouldn't be there at all, but the emphasis should be on making sure that children know that if something does happen that they're not happy about, that they can voice it. They're going to be trusted, and something's going to be done about it. Whatever it might happen to be. So it's so nuanced, and it depends on what we're actually talking about with regard to the safeguarding issues. If we're talking about actual abuse, that's very different to day-to-day conduct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ewan, what do you think?
Um, it's a challenging one. It's an emotional thing, and unfortunately, not just scouts, but people who care for young people, the positions have been exploited in the past. So we do need to be careful. We do need to watch what's happening. But when it comes to working with young people, if you keep them at arm's length at all times, how can you build trust? If you can't build trust, they're not going to tell you anything. So, in actual fact, keeping kids at arm's length, not being, not having relationships, social relationships, to be clear, with young people means that you're actually putting them at risk, because you're a trusted adult, and if they can't talk to you because they feel that you don't trust them, then they're not going to talk to you, and there then is a potential for abuse. Remember, most abuse happens in the home. That abuse can continue unabated because they're scared to tell you, because you might be on the abuser's side. You have to build a relationship. It doesn't work with every kid, but you have to be able to talk to them. You have to not run away when they come into the room and you're on your own. You need to manage things. I do think safeguarding is very important. Unfortunately, I've had experience of two leaders who were perhaps not quite as they should be. But that's for another story, and quite complex too. But as Ian said, the real abuse happens, and it's not something that most of us ever see. But
yeah, I've had situations where I've been brought into schools because there's either been suspected or there has been abuse that's taken place, and I've being the person that points the finger, gets the police in, and does all the rest on that. And as Ewan's just said, it's a case of you have to be able to have an honest, open, uh, social relationship with the kids, whether they're little kids or they're older teenagers, young people. And it will vary depending on who the individuals are. Also, their backgrounds, where they are in their lives. I've dealt with kids that have been, in and out of youth offending and police records that are, you just would not believe that a teenager could have a file so big on the things that they've gone through and what they've done. But they still need people that they can trust and that they can talk to. And you can't get that if you're going to be worried all the time about how you react. But just to cover it, the law basically says just be normal, be reasonable, and that is fine. What then happens, though, is all the youth organisations have instances that have happened, right? It's not just the Scouts, it's all of them, right? And it's the same with the schools and things like that. So they think, right, we have to close that loophole. We have to close this. We have to close this. And it's all right. Yes, totally agree. It all sounds very, very reasonable until you then take a step back and you think, oh my God, we've closed off so many things. Everybody's living in fear now. Everybody's looking over their shoulders. And that's not good for society.
No, I think one of the things I think that there's a view from the outside and a view from the, certainly in terms of Scouts, which is where the majority of my experience is currently. I think the internal view is much more febrile than the external view. I've had conversations with parents and we've been talking about something that we've been doing, and I've still we can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. And they're surprised. They're like, really? Why not? And it's like, well, that would involve being on our own in a, like giving a kid a lift home, say at the end of the night or whatever. There's things. I mean, there's things that we find ourselves doing that. Because the other thing is I suppose what you said there, Ian, about the law being reasonable, and there's that, and there's what the Scout Association. The Scouts have got some quite strict rules. The yellow card, as it's called, as you'll all may or may not remember. There's multicoloured cards now. There's a purple card which is for drinking as well. I think there's 5. I just recently redid the training, and there's now 5 different coloured cards. But the yellow card is the one for safeguarding. From my own point of view, just to close this particular question off, has safeguarding gone too far? I can't help but feeling this is not a good advert for any sort of youth work. And I would caveat that by saying I don't know exactly what it's like elsewhere, but in Scouts I find very often myself doing things and I feel as if I'm trying to prove my innocence. I'm not. My innocence isn't assumed. I feel that I'm having to prove my innocence, and I think as you both intimated, that it's a shame when you find yourself holding back. And I think you had made a really interesting point. It's this notion that if you don't make yourself open to young people, then actually they could be at risk if they're not speaking, if they don't feel as if they can speak to you. But I do occasionally say on a Thursday to the young folk, I say, I'm aware that sometimes, because we're all boys, we don't have any girls, and so we're very, for whatever reason, well, we're all boys, and I'm very careful to make sure that it doesn't become toxic. And if I'm being honest, they're also middle class. They're lovely. These children are so well brought up. There's no danger of, but it used to be, and it can be. You need to be quite careful. Some terminology could sneak in at they've heard at school, and so I'm always very careful to make sure that it doesn't become toxic. And I say, I'm trying to remember I try and say, when you're down on a Thursday, it's not just Scouts, it's not just setting fire to things and burning marshmallows. It's supposed to be a support network, and if there's anything that's bothering you, you don't need to ask it, at the beginning or at the end of the night when we're all gathered round. We don't do flag break. That's another thing we don't do. We're not very scouty. We don't do flag break. We gather round. We form up and we gather round. That's the wordage. But if anyone does have any concerns, then they should feel free to come and ask, come and speak, come and speak to someone about it. It doesn't have to be me. It can be one of the other leaders, and we'll always listen and we won't judge. So has safeguarding gone too far? I would say it possibly has. There's always people prepared to gold plate uh, good intentions and make them into something that they're not. And I think that it's kind of maybe gone a wee bit that way. Uh, but moving on, we've got two.
It's hard to argue against, though, isn't it?
Or
Because
you can't even question it
everybody
because
wants to do the very best for the kids, no matter
yeah,
what.
as soon as you say, "Oh, safeguard," it's like, "Oh, well, why are you
Mm,
questioning it? Is there what have you got to hide?" And yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And it's like, well, okay, so you can't question it, but yeah, it is what it is, and I can't see us rolling back any time. And I am interested to know. I think the council will be quite strict on these things as well. If you and your navigators and certainly other youth clubs, if they are operating under council guidelines or then I suppose they would have the same issues that we do. Scouts, I think, is it's a they don't have their challenges to seek. I don't blame Scouts. I don't blame the people that make the policy for it. They're reacting to what's going on and elsewhere and what's happened in Scouts as
it's a
well.
thing
So
because Scouts is so large.
it's huge. Their liability is
It's
enormous.
massive, and
Yeah,
that means that percentage-wise, there are going to be
yeah.
more incidents. And when you're at the top of it, you have to like, oh grief, how do we prevent this? How do we stop
Well,
this?
I don't think we can prevent it.
And
Well, I mean,
that's
they
it
can do as
precisely.
much, but
Mm,
it needs to be reasonable. But in any case,
mm.
if we the 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 second last question, and we'll need to keep this brief. What I've written down is, how do you think youth work is viewed by society? Is it needed? Is it valued? I'm gonna shorten that to, and this might be a loaded question, and I'm not trying. I'm not. This is not an invitation for us to blow our own trumpets. But do you think what you do is appreciated? And look at it from the point of view of the young people, and looking at it from the point of view of the parents. Do you think it's appreciated, or do you think it's just another throwaway activity that young people do?
With some of the kids that I get to deal with nowadays, I think some of them it's just something that they turn up to, and they might turn up one week, they might not turn up for a couple of weeks, and they drop it in and out of it. Those that come more regularly, oh, they absolutely want it. They need it. They get so much more out of it than just the activity. And I think that's been the case going back years, to be honest, with the kids. I think parents like the idea of having us, whether they appreciate it really, yeah, as long as they can pay for it and somebody else is doing the work, that's what they appreciate. They can drop the kids off and come and pick them back up later on. There's very few parents who are really wanting to be actively involved and taking a fuller part. Um, but I do think that youth work really does need to be given a much higher profile um, across all of society. It would and all the cutbacks, we won't go into politics or anything, but cutting back on youth provision has been such a major negative thing in this country. I would love to see funding being given to scout groups and other youth organisations. Um, it would solve so many more problems in society. Um, whether it's going to sports groups, um, scouts, cadets, other sort of weird sort of sub interests and things like that. Because apart from those actual physical activities or practical activities that the kids are getting involved with, they're learning to socialize. They're learning to develop as individuals and people in their own right. And that is megally important. And I think we've gone through a generation, maybe even two generations now, where we're losing that.
I'd like to,
You and what say you?
yeah, I think parental attitudes, societal attitudes change. When the parents bring the kids along to squirrels or beavers or junior navigators, it's just something for the kids to do. And they don't think too much about it. It's just a good thing. And it could equally be football or rugby or tennis or whatever. Is doing something. But then when they progress and when they move from juniors to senior navigators or from cubs to scouts, the kids then make a decision whether they want to do it or not. And if those kids decide they want to carry on, then the parents become more appreciative because they can see that their children are actually getting something out of what you're doing. And the more you do, the more appreciative the parents become. And the local communities, and this is something where we have an advantage over scouts. And I'm not knocking scouts because if it hadn't been for the scenario that arose, we'd still be scouts. I do believe in it. But we go out, went out the other week, we took the kids out and we did some litter picking. And they filled bags and bags of rubbish. And we posted it on local social media. And there's been literally thousands of likes. Kids, this is brilliant. Kids going out, doing stuff in the community. The scout groups, unfortunately, seem to be hidebound by this idea that they can't publicise what they're doing. They have to hide their official. They can't show photographs of kids, which it's up to them. We don't have a single member who hasn't come to us through not having seen them on photographs on Facebook. So this is how parents come to us. It's not through the website. It's not through personal contact. It's through seeing what they do in the local community. I think that's a good thing for our kids. We'll send them there. So I think that the appreciation of what we do changes over time. As the kids become involved, the more they do, the more they're appreciated. And certainly,
I was going to say, just it might come in as a topic that we might discuss another time, but I was involved with corporate communications within the Royal Air Force, and the idea of putting the cadets online and promoting things, putting photos up, videos up, right? It made a huge difference to recruitment and to the whole image of the organisation as it went through. I follow half a dozen different scout groups scattered all over the country. And it's basically because, they put their weekly photos up. I have no idea who the kids are, and I've got no particular interest. But, I think it's great to see that people are doing these wonderful activities, and I want to support that and say, yeah, well done. So I put my likes on the thing there. And, it does worry me that a lot of scout groups don't go down that line of promoting what they do, because then people would actually see, well, it's not just those sort of stereotypic ideas of what scouts and guides and all the rest of it appears to be. There's so much more that's involved.
Yeah.
Whether you're a traditional scouting group or something a bit more contemporary.
So I think I don't really mind what parents think. I think again it's an age thing. I think older parents value it or see the value in it more than younger parents. It's a hell of a thing when you can say that about parents. We've got actually older and younger parents, and that's a hell. I'm going to take some time to absorb that what I've just said there later on tonight when I cry myself to sleep. I think the kids are the young people are the most important thing, and as Ian has already said, we've got young people for whom it is a throwaway activity, and I'm absolutely fine with that. They come down, they miss weeks. Do you know the bar is, and this is what I say to them, is I'm honest about this with the young folk, and I just tell them, I say, do you know what, right? If you're down here, and we do have young people, there's like out of 20, there's 5 or 6 that are there relentlessly. They don't miss it, and I always tell them in front of everyone else, I salute you. I appreciate your loyalty. I really do. That's not to say that I don't think the others are disloyal or unloyal. But I make it known that the ones that really, for whom it matters, that matters to me as well. And I think that's really important. I think it's important that they know that. But also the ones that are just there because it's entertaining, they enjoy my witty repartee, my jokes, which they all laugh at, of course. I appreciate that as well. Maybe just not as much. I don't know how to say that properly. I don't know how to say that fairly,
Yep.
but you know. So I don't mind what parents think as long as the young folk are getting something out of it. And I think as well within that subgroup, the ones that are always there, there's always one or two in there that do really need it, and you can see that they actually do rely on that time. They'll come and speak to you, and you can tell that they might be bringing something up and they're laughing and they're joking, but actually there's a serious something. There's something serious, and you know. And I think that if there's ever a skill, I think it's known when someone's actually been serious. Not, you know, they might not want to appear as if whatever they're talking about is important to them, but it is. And there's a skill there in understanding what's happening in that moment, and okay, you can give your answer in a jocular, jokey sort of way, but understand that whatever answer you give matters. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that's fine. I think it's quite funny when parents, you know, some parents have. I always remember our club leader told a story. His kids, his kids grown up. Both kids have aged out of Scouts now, but his wife was outside the primary school gates, and they were chatting. She overheard parents chatting, and some parents were chatting about their kids they'd caught their kids playing with matches. The old playing with the matches thing. They found some matches in their kitchen drawer, and they were out the back garden setting fire to the hydrangea or whatever it was. And one of the other parents said, "Oh my gosh, no, that's what Scouts is for." And I totally, I think it is, and I think that as long as the young folk, if I was running Scouts and there was 20 there and only one of them was getting something out of it, I'd be quite happy. You know, something meaningful out of it, I'd be quite happy with that. So yeah, the last question, we're just at 1 hour and 30. I'm going to have to do some serious editing. Uh, I have to edit the parrot out. I'm sorry, the parrot's got
Yeah.
to go. The skunk's staying in though. The skunk's staying in.
All right.
The question I've got is, if you could wave a magic wand and change something about what you do, what would it be? So I'm just going to ask for a one-sentence answer. You could wave a magic wand. This isn't anything that's possible. Something that you would just change, move out, move in, that you could change to make your what you do better. It doesn't need to be the only thing, just the thing that springs to mind. For me, for if I'm going to use that awful social media, for me, I think where I am is more volunteers. If I wish it was easier to get people to put their hands up, because for two reasons. Firstly, it would make running the thing easier, but also I don't care what people do not understand how good it is for your mental health to to spend time with young people. Not all young people. Some young people are insufferable. I get that. They're not all perfect, right? But for the most part, if you're running a good organisation, and I like to think that ours is not terrible, then you will come down on a Thursday or a Monday night to Cubs to Scouts to Navigators to Circus workshop skills. If you're an adult, you will have a blast. I will always sell youth work on that behalf. I think when we grow up, we lose. This is me giving you time to think about what you change as well. By this, I'm waffling here. One of the things that I always put on our recruitment bump is that when you grow up, you leave the childish things. You leave the childish things behind. You forget how much good fun it was, and even when you were a kid, often you didn't have the money or the transport or the wherewithal to actually go and do the things that you wanted to do. At Scouts, it is and any other youth work, it is the excuse to do it. If you want to go karting, you can go karting. If you want to go and climb trees and make tree houses, and you're 40 years old, you can actually do it, and it's fine, and it's actually fine. So that's the one thing I would change is make it. I wish more people would. I wish I could figure out a way to get more people to volunteer.
Let them know it's fun,
Yeah.
because and it also keeps you. Well, I don't know whether it would with me because I never really grew up anyway, but it does keep you a lot more youthful.
Yeah, I think.
And
Well,
you know,
I can't remember.
I'm not down with the
Qualified to
kids.
say that.
Yeah, I'm not down with the kids, and I don't know all the stuff. Now, I have to agree that I am getting a bit slightly older now, but yeah, you're absolutely right. You're spending time with young people is brilliant,
So, so,
and
Ian,
it's
so,
so much better
so,
for you.
so, Ian, what would you change? What would be your thing what magic
Um,
thing would you change?
I would take something that I picked up from my time working in boarding schools, and that's that all kids should have a stint where they come and join Scouts for a short while, half a term, whatever. Uh, so they have an experience of it, and they can then make their choices. Obviously, it's not practical in the real world, but certainly within the boarding schools, all the kids had to sign up to at least one activity each weekday, and yeah, they would go off to that and go and do it. And it's great because they got to experience so many different things. Obviously, that's an environment where money's really not an object, and all kinds of things can be done. And there's
Yeah,
no problem with staffing because, like,
and
they're all paid to be there. But I would like the opportunity that all kids had the thing. Go
uh,
down. You spend half a term doing an activity with a youth group, and find out what it's really about. Yep.
okay, excellent. Ewan, have you? What would you magic away or in? What would you magic in or out?
Oh, I think because we are where we are, you can't really undo what has been done. But what I would, I'm with you, more volunteers, because more volunteers spreads the load, it makes it more fun, and ultimately you get more kids. You reach more kids, and that's what it's all about. It's how do we,
I think the lack of volunteers is the big limiting factor, isn't it? Really.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I I don't want to. I'm not bragging, but we. I had. Oh
As he's
God.
about to.
So I was just going to bring it. He's going to do it.
I had a
Do it.
group.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
I had a group with 29 leaders across 3 sections. Well, 4 if you count explorers, and the groups around about me were struggling to get a leader per section. And when I think it's about how you treat people and how you get them involved. Too many. Oh, I'm going off in one now. I'm sorry. Too many groups operate in sort of laterally. We're beavers, we're cubs, we're scouts, and the only time the sections talk to each other is when the kid's been transferred. And even then, sometimes they
Or
don't
they're,
really
or
talk
they're
to
arguing between who's got the resources.
it's but by I would have my beaver leader run scouts, my scout leader run cubs. I'd move people about. We never had the shortage because people moved and they helped. And unfortunately, when my wife and I resigned, within a month, 25 of those leaders also resigned because that fellowship disappeared. It became that layered dictatorship. I shouldn't really have said that.
I've got to say, when I left, when I was going to say when
That's
I
staying
left
in.
Scouts, apart from the beaver colony that they had, everything else closed down. You know, and it only took about a fortnight, 3 weeks, because
So
yeah,
it's
it
a
is
hell.
a it
It's
is a personality led thing in a certain way,
yeah.
because you know you're always going to get a leader or a small group of leaders who are very dynamic, the doers of the world. Yeah, and we might be right, we might be wrong, but we're the idiots who go out and do stuff. And most people are quite happy to allow us to do that, as long as we don't drag them along too much. But to get, as Ewan says, to get the volunteers, other people involved, yeah, you make it fun. You don't restrict people to what they have to do too much. Certainly, with age groups and things like that. You know, I was mainly with Scouts and what was then Ventures, now Explorers and Network. Um, but I would also take the Cub Scouts out. It's like they're part of the group.
Is it one of the advantages of helping with another section that isn't yours
Mm.
is that you can actually stand back a bit and enjoy it because you're not responsible. Well, you are sort of responsible, but you're not solely responsible for it. I occasionally help at Cubs, and it took me a while to figure it out. But gosh, it's so good for you. They're so keen, nothing gets done properly. But I'm not responsible. The Cub leader is, and it's just you can just stand back and watch it all unfold. It is fascinating and hilarious in equal measure. I just think it's endlessly entertaining to go down on a Monday night and help with Cubs. Listen, we've been at it for an hour and 37 minutes, and I don't know whether we can publish an hour and 37 minutes of. I know that some podcasts do that. I don't know if this is interesting enough. We'll need to have a wee think about that, but I am going to call it a day at that, and I'm going to stop the recording. Hang on after I've stopped the recording because we can still chat just to round things up. But just to say thank you very much for coming on, and I hope that maybe we'll get some more people on, and we'll see if there's an interest for this kind of podcast output. I have no idea because I don't know anything about podcasts. I've published the odd YouTube video, but not done a podcast before. So we'll see. We're going. Thanks very much for coming on though, for this inaugural podcast.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and hopefully, we'll get some people with opinions on what we've said. That's terrible. How dare you say that?
Oh, you can
Or
guarantee it.
you might agree.
There will be people who will watch every single second of it and pick it apart.
I hope not.
That's right.
Well, I hope they're entertained. Anyway, thanks very much. I'm going to press the stop button now. So thank you. And the stop button.